Oh, hello. Surprised to see you here. It's been a while. Yes, today's video is a spicy one. Today we're going to be going over power windows in Davinci Resolve 17, what they are, how it's used traditionally, as well as a few secret things you can do with it. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so this is actually my second time recording this tutorial. Last one was about 45 minutes long, no joke. So let's see if I can cut down the time. I'm going to try this one more time. So what are power windows in Davinci Resolve 17? Power windows essentially are a form of secondary correction typically found within the color page and enables you to isolate parts of an area for specific corrections. Now, what does that mean in English? Basically, you're using fancy shapes to isolate part of an image so you can add different effects to it traditionally. But I'm going to show you a few interesting things you can do with it and why it's not so simple and why it is very, very powerful. So without further ado, let's get started. We are in the edit page. We're going to navigate to the color page of Davinci Resolve 17. So follow me. Where I am right now, we are in the color page. Now to access the power window, if you will, so we need to go to this tab here. By default, you may or may not be on curves. So what you need to do is navigate to this icon here, and you can see we have window. So this is the power window tab, and you have all of these icons here. Don't worry, I'm going to be going through every single one. So at the top here, you can see we have linear, circle, polygon, curve, and gradient. And as you can see, it matches these icons here. So here we have a box, we have a circle, we have the polygon, and we have a curve and a gradient. So everything at the top here is the same that we have at the bottom here. The only difference is you can actually keep adding power windows using the ones at the top. So if I wanted to add multiple, I can do that here. Let me delete those. Whereas if we use the icons here and I click on, say for example, this rectangular, if I click onto it again, it's just going to simply get rid of the power window, not add an additional. So the difference is if you want to add a single power window, you can use these icons down here. If you wanted to add multiple of the same power window, say for example, I want to add another rectangular or linear, I can use the top bar to add another. So once we've got that out of the way, let us go through each individual power window. So right now you can see we have a linear power window. I basically call it a rectangle. We're going to call it a rectangle for the sake of simplicity. So we have a rectangular power window, and you can see we can move it around by selecting inside of it. We have these kind of red edges. So these red handles are essentially the feathering of a power window. You can go inside and adjust this handle to rotate, and you can use the edges to expand the selection. So this is the basic controls you have with mostly all of the power windows. So how does a power window essentially work? Well, there's a few things that you need to notice. First thing is, if we look to the right hand side, you can see its effects on the nodes. This is very powerful, and I'm going to show you exactly why very, very soon. Be patient with me. You can also see that it's kind of isolating part of this image, but we don't see it here. Well, if you want to see in the exact view that the node's showing, all you need to do is go to the highlight tool at the top left corner right here. So if I click onto highlight, you can actually see the part of the image to which your power window is affected. I'm going to turn it off for now. How power windows work, again, as I said in the beginning, is you can use basically shapes to isolate part of an image for corrections. So say, for example, if I wanted to make everything inside of this box blue, all I need to do is click onto this power window that I've created, and I can use any adjustments within Davinci Resolve. So if I wanted to, for example, use my curves, I can use that, and it's going to adjust the image. If I wanted to use my lift gamma gain, I can use that. And I'm going to go back here and click power window so you can see it. So now you can see that everything inside of this power window is being affected. But these aren't the only icons that we see here next to our power window. What are these? So right here, you can see we have two icons. One is the invert tool and one is the intersect tool. And I'll explain both. The invert tool is, as you would expect, it basically doesn't isolate everything inside of your power window. It isolates everything outside of your power window. So if I click onto it, you'll see that everything outside of this range is being affected, which is kind of interesting. This intersect tool essentially enables you to have multiple masks intersect with each other. So if, for example, I add a circular mask, right? We can have it right here. The adjustments that we made before prior, so you can see the adjustments that we make here, are only be affected by what's inside of the mask. Now, if I use this mask here and I put it inside of the other mask and I use the intersect icon right here, you can see that it's now intersecting with the other power window. So you can actually use this to get some pretty interesting power window combinations. but we'll get into that very soon. To the right of our power window, you can see we have a few transform and softness tools. Essentially what this enables you to do is manipulate the sizing, shape of your power window and also adjust the feathering. As I stated earlier, whenever you see these red handles here, it basically adjusts the softness or feathering of your power window. But you also have the controls on the right hand side here. So under softness, you can see that if I adjust soft 1, soft 2, it's adjusting the power window accordingly. Now all of these power windows have different shapes. As such, you may not necessarily get the same softness and feathering controls. If, for example, I go back to the circular power window, you can see we only have one softness control and we have one giant global red handle that we can adjust to adjust the softness. So depending on which power window you're using, you may or may not get different softness or feathering controls. Let's go back to the rectangle power window because it'll be easier to demonstrate this. But you can see we have transport controls. You can actually adjust the global size, pan, tilt, and rotation of our power window all within this transform tool, as well as the opacity and the aspect, which is pretty useful. So if you didn't necessarily want to spend the time adjusting individual handles, then you don't necessarily need to be doing that. You can use the transform tools. Okay, so now that we've got all of these out of the way, let me show you the differences between the power windows. So the first one you saw is this rectangle. Again, everything that's inside of the power window is being affected by your corrections, or if you use the invert button, everything outside of the power window is being affected. So we have the rectangle tool. And again, you can grab the handles to manipulate it in any way that you want, which is nice. We next have the ellipse, which is essentially a giant circle. So this is kind of handy because if, for example, you wanted to do effects similar to the Magic Mask tutorial on YouTube, you don't necessarily need to be using all of the processing power, and you can do it for free by using any of these power windows. With our softness controls, we only have one control to adjust, which is soft 1. I'll close this for now. We next have the polygon. Now this looks very similar to the rectangle. You might be thinking, okay, well, what is the difference, kind sir? Well, allow me to explain. If you notice straight away, we don't necessarily have the red handles. We can adjust the softness with the inside and the outside. So again, we're adjusting the feathering. But the reason why this is different is because not only can we move these individual points, but we can add points too. So if we click anywhere else onto this power window, we can actually start to get some pretty refined results. So left mouse clicking onto anywhere of the power window will add a point. And if you middle mouse click onto any of the points, you can actually get rid of points. So that's the difference between the two tools. Pretty useful. You can get some decently refined adjustments, but it's not perfect and you can't actually make curves. You can see that these edges are quite hard and there's no way to make them smooth or into a curve. And that, my friend, is where the next tool comes into place. We have the pen, or the curve, if you will. Now this essentially works like the pen tool within Photoshop, Affinity Photo, Affinity Design, or Illustrator. This is essentially a pen tool. As you can see, as I'm clicking, I can click to get very specific, accurate selections. And if I click and hold, you can see that we get, ooh, you can see we can get curves. So if you wanted to get very specific selections, this is undoubtedly the tool, the power window that I would use. I'm going to do this really quickly because, you know, YouTube. And well, bam, just like that, you can see now we've isolated our subject really well. Looks really good if you ask me. I mean, minus the fact that, you know, everything's blue, because if I was to do this properly, anyway, we'll do this properly in just a second. This is just to show you. So we're going to go back to crazy, crazy blue. Okay. And lastly, we have, bam, the gradient. So this is the gradient tool. And if you grab onto the handle at the bottom, you can actually drag it down to adjust the softness and the feathering. You can do the exact same thing by the right hand side here. And you can rotate it. You can move it around. Yeah, this is the gradient power window. So now we've gone through all of the power windows. Let me show you what you can do with them and why they are so powerful and so great. So let's get to some real practical examples. This scene here, I'm not going to waste your time. I'd probably use one of my LUTs. Speaking of, you can get my LUT pack now, link in the description. Thank you all those who have supported me and bought my LUT pack. But yeah, I'm going to go to my LUTs right now. I'm going to go to my Guardian LUT pack and I'm going to add a Goya. Right now, this looks super crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the key in tab right here. I'm going to go to key output. I'm going to reduce the strength. This basically acts like an opacity slider. And as you can see, we've just decreased the strength. So this is the before, this is the after. Looks sensational to me. I'm going to create a new node by pressing Alt S. How are we doing for time? Okay, this is not half an hour. That's great. Okay, so I'm going to create a new node and I'm going to go back to my power windows right here. If I was doing this properly, I would actually use the pen power window and isolate her as I showed you before. But for the sake of time, we're not going to do that. We're going to use a circular ellipse. And what we're going to do is we're going to hover over her face, this area right here. We're going to do it just so it isolates part of her face, like so. Yep, sensational. And I'm going to do some actual corrections. So what I'd probably do is I'd lighten up her face a little bit so it pops a bit more, and I'd adjust the color ever so slightly. Again, I could actually go into my hue versus hue, isolate the face and adjust, you know, the hue this way, but I'm going to do it very subtly, like so. Right now you can see the power window's disappeared. If you want to show your power window again, all you need to do is go to the left hand side right here, click onto it, go to power window, bang. You can show it again if you want to hide it, off, bang. I want to show it, so power window. Or if you want to see how it's affecting the image, kind of like the view on a node, again, just go to the top left corner, find a highlight tool, and you can see how much of the image is being affected by the power window. So this looks kind of good to me. I'm going to hide this for now. See before, after, before, after. And right now you can see that we've actually done a lot. Like we've actually done pretty well. And this is an actual practical example of one of the many, which I'm about to show you, the many use cases that you would use power windows for. Now, this is why I said it's used. This is how it's used traditionally. But let me show you a few secret things that you can do with it. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to put the power window back on. Before, after, looks good if I say so myself. And I'm actually going to adjust the softness and feathering just a tad, just a little bit. Right, so let me turn the power window off real quick so I can see. Yep. Now, here, my friends, is where things get interesting. If I press play, yep, you can see that we have a problem. In fact, let me go all the way to blue so you can see it properly. We have a problem. She's moving because, of course, you know, this is a video, but she's moving and the power window is not moving. So what do we do here? I'll sit here and wait. Type in the comments what you think we should do. Have you guessed it? If you have guessed that we go frame by frame and we basically move the mask so it's following the face, you are absolutely incorrect. No, that is not what we're going to do here. We are in Davinci Resolve 17 and it is extremely powerful. So what we are actually going to do is the following. Remember I said that the power window affects a node. This is extremely powerful because you can do multiple things with nodes, including tracking. Yes. What we're going to be doing is using Davinci Resolve's extremely giant brain, and we're going to track this for us automatically. So right next to our power window menu right here, we have a tracking window. I'm going to go back to the beginning of our timeline right here. So where the clip starts, before, after. Yep, looks good to me. And what I'm going to do, I'm in the tracking menu right here. So right next to the power window, we have the tracking, and I'm going to press this button here to track forward and watch what's going to happen. Just watch. Just watch. Look at this. It's literally tracking. Look, she's rotating her head. She's moving her head and the power window is following her. I'm going to pause for now. And I'm just going to add a crazy blue again so you can see that this is actually working. So if I play forward, you can see that she's moving her head and the tracker is actually tracking her. This is this is actually insane. This is literally mind blowing and extremely powerful. Let me go back because this correction looks way too crazy. There we go. Much better. So you have the ability to not only isolate part of an image, but also track that image too. You can see why this is very powerful and very unique for color grading and use in specific effects. Did I say effects? Oh, I jumped ahead. Don't worry, we'll get into that. But this is super, super crazy. Now I know what you might be thinking. Okay, well, this is great and all, but you know, the power window is pretty big. She feels a lot of the frame and it's well lit. Well, my friends, have no fear. Let me show you another example, shall we? So I'm going to go to my clips, go to the next clip right here. Here you can see we have this shot here. What's interesting is a lot smaller and we go from one lighting condition, which is kind of dark, into a different lighting condition because we're about to go outside. Literally, it's about to go outside. So this technically would be quite difficult for any tracker. I don't really mind how powerful you are. you know, different lighting conditions is a lot for a computer to handle, but we're going to be doing just that. So what I'm going to do for argument's sake is I'm going to start about, yep, here looks good. Going to go to my power windows tab right here. So again, if you're in curves, go to power windows. I could isolate the whole image, but I'm lazy. Oh, sorry. Efficient. So I'm going to use just a circle ellipse, and we are going to isolate, let's isolate him. So we're going to go to his face. I'm going to hover over his face a little bit. Just so you can see, we're going to put the crazy blue on, and we're going to go to our track in, and we're going to track forward. And just like that, you can see it's literally tracking in real time. We've gone from a dark, dimly lit location, and we're about to go outside where it's brightly lit. He's moving, he's rotating his head. The perspective is changing. He's getting closer to the camera, and it's still tracking. In fact, he's going to go off camera. And as you can see, it's actually followed him off camera, which is insane. In fact, not only can we track forwards, we can also track backwards. Just like that. And again, he's going into even darker conditions and it's still working. Mind blowing. Absolutely mind blowing. So I'm going to go back. There's one thing I failed to mention. After you've tracked an image, you can actually still adjust the power window. So say, for example, you can tell that this has been tracked already, right? I can still go here and manipulate my power window. So if I wanted to make it slightly skinnier, adjust the feathering and continue, still works. If I wanted to make this huge, I'll go to my transform tool and I want to make it huge and I press play. You can see, still working. What's also interesting is in our power windows, you can see we have this icon here, and this basically shows you which of the many power windows that you have that is tracked. So remember I said you can have multiple different power windows. So say, for example, if I had a rectangular power window, here I have two power windows. I have one on the left and one on the right. This here doesn't have the icon because it's not tracked. This one here is. And yes, before you ask, you can track multiple different power windows within the same node and the same shot. So if, for example, I wanted to add another circle and go here, I can go to her face, go back to the tracker, track forward. And would you look at that? It's tracking her face as well. Mind blowing. Absolutely mind blowing. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Now, this doesn't just work for faces, by the way. No. Not just faces. We have another example right here, this track here. Before we get to that though, there is one interesting thing I would like to show you. So you may or may not have seen my Magic Mask tutorial. A lot of people are saying that it's quite slow, quite performance heavy on a computer. Well, you can actually use this effect to have a similar to Magic Mask effect. So again, if you get a circular mask, or even if you draw using the curve tool and you draw around your subject, you can actually use this as if it was a Magic Mask tool. So again, we can add some corrections. If you wanted to soften the face, let me show you a quick secret right now, just between you and me, a really quick secret. If we go to the primaries tab right here, and we go to the right hand side, the one on the far right, to the log wheels, I'm going to zoom into her face so you can see it. There's actually a slider right here called Mid to Details. If I move this down, you can see we're adding a skin softening effect. So if you wanted to, if you wanted to smooth the skin in a quick way, this is how you would do it. And let me show you a quick before and after. Before, after, literally. Isn't this crazy? Isn't this crazy? You can smooth skin. Anyway, this is just a quick tangent. You can see we have this truck. So here's the situation. So we have this truck, which is red, and I want to make this truck green. How do we do that? Well, in Davinci Resolve, of course, there are many ways to do one thing. So we could use the qualifier tool, click onto the qualifier tool, click anywhere on the truck to find the color that we want. Use the highlight tool so we can see what's being affected. We could move this around, increase the width a little bit, increase the softness, the low, the high, low soft, adjust the luminance a little bit, move this around so we can get more of the color in. Yep. Now I could probably change it this way. I could change this to green. But as you can see, oh no, we've affected some of the face. And not only that is the whole truck isn't turned green. Okay, well, let's try a different method. We could use hue versus hue. So we can go to our curves, we can go to hue versus hue, find the reds and change this to a green. And look, similar problem. Even if we expand the area which is being adjusted, we still have the problem of it affecting other areas. And most importantly, the skin tones, and that is not what we want. Okay, let's try one more thing. The new color warper tool. So we could use this to change the hue to a green. And yep, this is great. But again, we have the same problem. It's affecting everything else, including the skin tones. So this is where power windows come in extremely handy and is extremely powerful. We can actually use any of the adjustments we just used, but use the power window to isolate only parts of the image we want to be affected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the beginning of the clip, and I'm going to use the curve or the pen power window. And I'm just going to draw very quickly because, you know, YouTube, over this truck. And I'm actually going to go over these two. Don't worry about that. I'm going to tell you why in just a second. I just want the whole truck to be selected. Okay, so now we can use any of the adjustments we just used. So say, for example, we can use hue versus hue, and it's going to affect the power window, and I can change this whole truck to green. So now the problem with only part of the truck being selected has been negated, because if we go back to our power window, you can see that we've isolated just the truck, and the whole truck is being turned green. Not only that, but the background is not being affected. But what is being affected are two people in the scene. So how can we fix this? So remember in the beginning, I told you that you can actually use a power window to intersect with another power window. Well, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to do this very quickly, and I'm not going to be very accurate, but we're going to use an ellipse. So as this ellipse tool, we're going to highlight over these two right here, and we're going to press this icon here to intersect, and bang, just like that. Right, so let me turn off. Just like that, you can see that we have the green of the truck and the skin tones of these two here. And of course it doesn't look perfect because I used a crazy, you know, circular power window. If I was to use like another curve tool, I could be way more accurate. We'll just do him for now. Power window off. See, we can actually be way more accurate. But for time's sake, we're not going to do that. We're just going to use an ellipse for example purposes. Now, if I press play, you can see we still have the same problem. This is a video, and as such, our power window is in the exact same position as the camera's moving. So what do? Of course, we're going to track it. We're going to track forward because we can. So I'm going to select onto the power window that we want to track. I want to track onto the truck first. I'm going to click onto the curve, go to the tracking menu, which is the next one to the right. Just track forward. And as you can see, we have all of these little dots, and it's literally tracking the truck. So we have our tracked image, and the problem we had before has been negated. Our skin tones are not being affected, and we've changed the complete color of the truck. Insane. Now that we've got the boring stuff out the way, I can tell you all about the interesting stuff. So that is how you would traditionally use power windows. But let me show you a few things you can actually do, some interesting things. I'm going to go back to my first example, and we still have it tracked and the power window on her face. This video is about to be really long. I'm really sorry, guys. But earlier on in the video, I mentioned that a power window is affecting a node, right? Now this got me pretty excited. You might be thinking, why? Okay, so just look at the Davinci Resolve right now. Just look at it. Look how beautiful it is, right? You can see we have all of these adjustments here, but we have one elephant in the room right now. What is it? Yep. Open effects right here. So actually right here, you can see that we have all of these effects. And since this is a node, we can actually manipulate the power window with effects. So say, for example, if you wanted a quick way of blurring a face in any of your videos, I can add a Gaussian blur. I'm going to drag it over the node of the power window. And just like that, this is insane. We have a tracked, look how crazy this is. Look how crazy this is. We have a tracked power window, which is following our subject and affected an isolated area. If I turn this off, on. This doesn't work just for blurs. No, literally any effect you can think of. Say, for example, we wanted to do like a little cyberpunk effect. I have no idea. We would do scan lines. One of my favorite effects. I'm going to drag it over the same node. Bang. You can see it's adjusting her face. I'm going to change the line frequency so it's a little bit higher. I'm going to change the color to a blue. We can actually change the color right here in our power window. Let's go a little bit extreme for example's sake, and I can play forwards. We have this. So just think about all the creative possibilities you can do if you're editing. If, for example, you're doing news and TV and you want to be blurring backgrounds, no problem. You can just add a blur. Simple as that. If you're doing music videos, maybe some meme editing or some gaming videos, you want to add some specific effects, you can do that too. And now we have this kind of effect. So There's literally any effect that you see here: scan lines, prism blur, pencil sketch, mirror. That might look a bit crazy. Oh no, this looks that looks super crazy. That actually looks really, really crazy. I don't know how I feel about that. But any effect that you think of, literally, any effect that you see in this library, you can use and it will look incredible. Now there's two more things I want to show you that you can do with Power Windows before we wrap this up. The first thing is masking. Now you may have noticed, but I slipped up a few times within this video and I might have called a Power Window mask. They are absolutely not the same, even though they have similar operations. So for example, if I have this gradient tool and I show you the highlight tool, you can see it's affected this area and it kind of works like a mask, but nothing's happened. We can't see anything underneath. Why? Well, that's because a Power Window is not a mask. But I can show you how to turn it into a mask right now. So say for example, I'm going to turn the highlight tool off right now. If we just take a look at this node, you can see we have two outputs at the moment. This green output and this blue output. But this blue output doesn't lead into anything, right? There's nothing here, literally. Well, my friends, let me show you a little secret. If you right click, you can see we have this new thing that says add alpha output. If we click onto this and we drag this blue to the blue here, just like that, you can see we now have a mask. And just to show you, I'm going to go back to my edit page. I've actually stacked these two clips on top of each other. If I go back to my color page, you can now see that we have a pretty creative mask and this looks really good. Like this is actually a pretty interesting effect. Not only this, but you can still use all of the previous corrections from before. So say for example, the sky, we can actually make this way more blue because it is still a Power Window. We can also invert this and have it look like this. This is this is kind of interesting and kind of funky. Or we can use it in addition to other Power Windows. So say for example, if I wanted to isolate her, I can just draw around her very quickly. It's taking a little bit of time, I apologize. Okay, look. So now you see we've isolated her. I'm going to re-enable and now we have her literally sitting in clouds. I mean, it looks pretty bad. I'm going to add some softness. Now the last thing I'm going to show you is basically using Power Windows to do giant grades. If for example, we wanted to stylize this image right here with a grade, we can do that with Power Windows and it's actually quite quick. So I'm going to have a node here and I'm going to add a gradient and I want to make the sky, let's make it bluish. So we're going to make it dark bluish, greenish tint. So this is the before, this is the after, just so you can see. And I now want to add another gradient, but the other way. So you might be thinking, okay, great. We can go to here, we can add a gradient and we can spin it around, right? Wrong. Because as you can see, this gradient, even though we've selected onto the second one, we try to adjust it, it's affecting both at the same time. If you reach this problem, all you need to do is create a new node. Simply just that. Alt S, create a new node, guess a new gradient. I'm going to turn this around, I'm going to spin this around and I'm going to make it orange. Because, you know, teal orange, you know. And just like that, let me show you. Off, on. We have a pretty stylized look straight away, literally straight away. And not only this, we can go and we can add different effects. We can add light rays, we can add lens flares, we can add glows, and it will affect the Power Window and just the isolated area. So you can literally do, we can add scan lines. You already know by now, it's my favorite. Oh, this look is kind of crazy looking. There's so many different things you can do, literally. This video is way too long, but we've briefly touched upon all of the different things you can do within Power Windows, from smoothing out faces, blurring faces, doing corrections, isolating part of an image, and masking, and more. If you like this video, guys, please share, subscribe, comment, like. Let me know in the comments below if you want to see more videos like this. And I am back now, so I'm going to start reading all of your comments all over again. Thank you for watching the video, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.